for a week of Kate's Creative Connections. It's great to see everybody. I'm going to make sure that all of our connections are up and running, and then I'll jump in and we'll get started because I am super excited to share with you what we're going to do today. It's going to be good times. I think you guys are really going to love it. I'm waiting for my Facebook here to connect, but I think you guys, if you guys over on YouTube can hear me, let me know here if you can. Let me know if you can see and or hear me. I can see that there are some people over on there we go. I see you. I see you. I see you. Perfect. And let me just get this going on over here to make sure that I've got this connection going on. And I do. Perfect. Whoops. But you can hear me. There we go. Alrighty. So fantastic. Gita is over on Facebook doing some moderating over there as beadshop.com. And Janice is over there chatting on the YouTube feed. And so we're ready to go. So let me click over here. And let me make sure that I am presentable here, that nothing went awry this morning. Alrighty. And there we go. And 3, 2, and 1. Here I am. And here. Excellent. Well, it's Tuesday, the 28th of April. We're doing well. We're doing good here at Bead Shop. Chris and I are healthy. Janice, Andrea, and Karen are healthy. Things are running smoothly. So thank you so much, as always, for putting up with us. And Chris and I are cranking out those orders. So if you have any questions about your order, you can always talk to Drea. Email Drea at info@beadshop.com. But you can also check your newsletter as well as the website. There's a link right on the front page to let you know exactly what order we've shipped out through. So we're getting through them slowly but surely, or not too slowly. We're doing okay. We are really trying to push through, but Chris and I got some rest on Sunday. We came in on Saturday and processed some orders and got a lot of new stuff into stock. So I know unprecedented times, but again, we really, really appreciate your what do I want to say? Patience and your patronage all at the same time. But we're doing well. We're good. Yes, and Gita's asking about the cats. Yes, Alfie and Ollie and Florence are all good. But I'm telling you, 3 cats, the difference between 2 cats and 3 cats, that's a lot. So, but they're good. They're all good. We can't complain. Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit about moving forward with macrame with the mix in of peyote stitch. Now, last week was peyote week, right? You were here for peyote week, and it was a lot of fun. We had a great time with it. And so I was playing around, but I missed the knotting. I know you guys kind of missed the knotting too, right? So I decided to try and mix it up. So this is really an ode to Brittany. Brittany is over on the YouTube stream as well. So this is a real ode to Brittany, who has given me like the courage to try all kinds of different macrame things. So that's great. So this is peyote plus macrame equals, I think, hopefully it's going to be good. So that's what I'm doing today. And this is going to take us maybe a couple of days. And then I'm going to give you another knot and we're going to use that as the basis for a lariat. Because as you know, thank you for mentioning, Marion, you led me right into, Marion noticed my scarf. This scarf is from when, you can see it a little bit, it's from my beloved, one of my favorite museums in the whole wide world, though pretty much every museum that I go into is my favorite. But this is from the Victoria and Albert, the V&A Museum, right in Kensington, in London. And it's where I lived when I went to school in London for a while. I lived right across the street from the V&A. And the V&A was like my second home. I spent so much time there. It was amazing. It was incredible. I just walked up Thurlow Square and right into the V&A. It was incredible. So this scarf is from the V&A, and it depicts Queen Victoria's coronation. So that's what this is from. So, but the rest of this week, after we finish this peyote gig, we're going to move into lariats, which are kind of like scarves, right? Only beaded, right? Because you can kind of, flip it around your neck or wrap it or doing all this kind of stuff, right? So, so we're going to play with lariats, and we're going to start that lariat off also with a knot, which are going to be the bottom parts of the lariat. So that's kind of what's coming up next. I like it, and it's all subject to change and my whims, really, right? But that's what I have planned. So it's great to see everyone again here. I see that my dear mama, is online. So it's great to have her watching it as always. Someday I'll get to see you in person, which would be amazing. I also wanted to let you guys know we had a really great, Brittany and I had a great phone meeting, a cocktail hour on Saturday. And we cooked up kind of a fun new video component that's going to be coming out, and you'll get more information about it. But I know how much Brittany's videos have inspired you guys and me. She's incredible, an incredible instructor. So we're going to do a little series called From Brittany's Studio that's going to come out on a semi-regular basis out on the YouTube channel. They're not going to be live broadcasts, but they're going to be series, different things that Brittany is doing on her studio table, right? And so she's going to start that. She's already started that project, and so stay tuned to your newsletters because you're going to see more of that. So Brittany's going to be adding some wonderful video assets, and Britt, I'm so excited about it, and I know you guys are going to be as well. So another bracing drink of coffee here, and let's take a look at what's on the board. So we're going to look at the O bead piece that I made earlier. And that's what we're going to base let me get this so the camera can see it. That's what we're going to base the rest of our macrame on. Okay? So I was digging this O peyote, and you guys may remember this from Friday, right? How I did this kind of kooky section here. Let me see if I can, I don't like to screw with the camera too much when it's on because I don't want to mess up any of my cords, but let me get it a little bit closer to me. There we go. That's better. Thanks for that. Sorry about that weird little shot there. So I did this centerpiece, you guys remember, right? As kind of a riff on Friday. And so I thought, Gita posted this really cool piece that she was working on, right? She did this kind of O peyote where she did the regular peyote stitch here and then went to the O beads and then came back to the regular peyote stitch, and it looked amazing, right? And but I thought, in my head I was like, what would Brittany do? Okay, and Brittany would macrame, so I'm like, all right, I'm gonna macrame this sucker. So right after the broadcast, I played around, and you guys saw a little bit, I think, of that maybe when I was saying what I was going to use. I used some of the 0.5 millimeter Chinese knotting cord in gray, okay, and I did some experimentation on this side, okay, and it's okay. I'm going to point out some flaws, and then I have something set up on this side, this opposite end, which I think is going to be better. I tried to get to this weekend to kind of play around with it, but I didn't. So sorry. So I am going to talk you through what I think is wrong with this side and how I'm going to try it again on this side here. Okay? So it's really an ode to Brittany's Bollywood. So if you know how to Bollywood, you already know how to do this, okay? So essentially what I did is, and I'm going to unpin this so you guys can see this, okay? What I did was, and I think you might have seen me do this, I can't remember, I think I did it on air, where I peyote stitched in, let me get this a little tighter so you can see it. I peyote stitched in the big shadows. There we go. And then I peyote stitched in some little shadows to kind of take up some space. And then I used the 0.5 millimeter, I think I showed you, I put them through these big shadows here, right? And afterwards, after I got off the air, I started to macrame with it. And I felt that the 0.5 was a little thin. I mean, it was okay. I don't hate it, but I think it can be better, okay? You can also, I wanted to mention, you could also use this vertical Clio as a starting point for something like this. If you're like, girl, I'm not doing that peyote thing, I just want to do this macrame. You can do this too. Okay, use this, and I'll show you this again in a second. So what I did was, you can see that the little shadows, I don't love the way they look, and see how it's kind of like it ends with the big shadow and then it has a little shadow hanging out here, and it doesn't look very refined, the finish, right? So but I wanted to practice and see this flat macrame stitch. This is all Bollywood. This is all flat macrame. So if you know how to do Bollywood, you actually already know how to do this. You just need to learn how to do it in the right sequence. Okay? So I thought that I would mix it up a little bit and that I would try 0.8 millimeter. Okay? So I grabbed whatever I had at hand. This is the 0.8 millimeter in tree bark. And I thought the tree bark looked nice. I liked this gray with it, but I like this tree bark too. So what I did was I cut, let me get it so you can see it in the shot. There we go. And I'm going to pin this down so it doesn't move too much. Just using sewing pins just to kind of fasten it down there, okay? And I cut 2 lengths. I'm using my big macrame board, the big one, the back of it. So I cut about 30 inches, 2 lengths of the macrame board. So it's about 30 inches of cord, and then I doubled it through. Now I want you to see what I did here with, let me tighten these cords up so it kind of makes sense here. These cords get tightened and these kind of go over here. There we go. So what I did was, instead of putting the little shadows in there, I just ditched them. They weren't helping it, right? Then I also wove back through. I had like a little extra space here where I could have added another bead, but instead I just came up and I wove off my thread back here, right? So all I have are 5 shadows. There's still a little, they're not center, right? There's still a little offset because of the way the peyote stitch runs, but I'm okay with it. You can see on this end here, see how there's that little shadow that's sticking out at the end, and like that extra bead that's sticking out at the end, and it just doesn't look right, right? So then I cut my 30 inches of 0.8 millimeter Chinese knotting cord, and I just put them through the shadows. And can you see how it just goes like that? So what I did essentially was, I'll pull this one so you can kind of see. I'll pull it out. What I did was I did some zap glue on the end. See that there? So it's stiff like a needle. Then I clipped it at an angle, and then that just makes it string through there really easily. Okay. Now, to do this flat macrame, I'm going to do just a couple of the flat macrame so you can see it. Okay. And again, it's all Bollywood, so you don't get stressed out. You just have to remember the order. Okay. I'll go as wide as I can with this so you can kind of see it, and then I'll get in tight. Okay. So you can see down here I'm using my macrame board to hold my threads. So what you want to do is, let me clear the way here first. The center two, or the ones that are in this center one right here, I put through and tighten down, okay? Because this is going to be my center thread that's going to be running through here. And then on the sides, right, can you see I've got a doubled strand here, so that's 2, another doubled strand here, so that's 4, a doubled strand here, same thing on the other side, and a doubled strand here. So can you see how that works? Okay. So now I'm just going to do that flat macrame stitch. I'm going to go from my left, then I'm going to tie my right, then I'm going to tie my center. Okay, so I'm going to get a little tighter. I'm going to tighten in these center strands. It's always a little fussy, but I'm going to tighten these center strands in, right? And you want to make sure that all of your threads are fairly even. So that thread goes with that one. Here's this one. Here's my center threads over here. And this, okay? And this is going to be clear as crystal once you see it. Okay, so I'm going to tighten these. I'm going to put these down here for a second, and I'm going to work with these. And I want to make sure, again, this is tight. Like anything, when you start, it's like, okay, your first strands or your first knots are kind of, difficult. So just bear with me here. Let me get tighter. Brittany, I hope this inspires you. You totally inspired me. I was like, I bet we can do that. And I was kind of surfing around looking at macrame stitches. And I'm like, this is just like, I don't know. We can call this triple Bollywood or something, right? So you know how, just ignore this over here. Okay, pretend you don't even see this, right? How do we start a Bollywood, right? We have a center core, right? The 2 center cores. And then we make our half hitch knots. Now we're always going to start with the loop on the outside, right? So here's the the Q comes over. This strand comes over that leg. Again, just ignore this part over here. We go under the threads. Oops, we want it to be tight though. Under the threads and back up and through the loop. You remember that, right? That's the first stitch of Bollywood. That's half of the full square knot, right? So now we're going to complete the square knot on the other side, right? So we do the P side. There's the P. I go over that leg, under the center legs, up through the loop. Now see how this first knot wants to loosen, so just tighten it a little bit, maybe put your finger down on it and tighten the second one. Okay, let me go in tight so you can see it. Oh, not that tight, not that tight. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Okay, I take my threads. Now I always want to start the outside loop first, right? So this time I'm going to start with the P, and I get my end, it's coming out of that shadow, under the center strands, up and through the loop. Tighten this down. Up and through the loop, and there's your first one. Now do the opposite. Okay, and that makes my full half hitch. That first knot wants to come a little loose. Don't do it too tight because you want to keep this nice and flat. Okay, so can you see what we've got there? We've just done Bollywood on two. So you could, if you wanted, you guys, just Bollywood the heck out of these, right? Those single strand like Brittany does, and I know I have one of her Bollywood pieces sitting here, or like this, right? I've got one of mine, right? This one happens to be beaded, right, over leather, but it's that same thing. You could just bead all the way down right here, right? Bead, 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 right? You do the same thing here, bead, bead, bead. And then this center strand, you could tie on another strand of the Chinese knotting cord. So it would be like 3 separate strands, right? That would be cool. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to complicate the issue. Not complicate, but I'm going to make it a little bit different. See how these 2 strands now, here and here, right, that are sitting here on the sides, I can use these to tie that same square knot in the center around these center strands. So I'm going to start with my P, or my Q. I'm going to start on the Q side. I'm going to make that, get a little wider in here. It doesn't have to be so super tight. All right. And I'm going to go around, under, and tie that half that square knot, right, is there. Now again, don't pull it too tightly, and I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to do the P side, tighten that up just a bit before I pull the second knot tight. Put your finger on it if you need to. Okay, so see that now, how they've come together? Okay. So what I can do here, and what I've done on this one, whoops, you can't see that. On this one, that's upside down. So I'll turn it around. This makes a little more sense now, right, over here. So you can see even though it's smaller. So I've gone, that's the right, or that's the left, that's the right, and that's the center. Okay. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to do it again, but can you see how on this one there was that plain just strand sitting in between? I thought, why not put a bead on it? So I alternate every other time I tie the knot, I put one of these shadows on. I'm not sure if I love it. I didn't love the way it kind of smushed in with the small cord, so that's why I'm going to the 8. Now, as Brittany says, we can also add some beads around the outer strands as well. Okay, so I'm going to, so just hang with me on this, okay, while I kind of make it up as I go along. So, because again, I didn't have as much time as I would have liked to have played with it. So I'm going to put a shadow on this, right, and see how that shadow bead, it just nestles right in there, okay? And so I know on this side, on the left side, I always start with the P side of the loop. So, or the Q side, I'm sorry. I'm getting my right and left mixed up. No surprise there. Let me widen this a little. Okay, so I'm just going to ignore that that bead is on there, and I'm going to come in just like you do to tie the regular knot, that this thread goes over the tail of the Q, under those second threads, those center threads, and up. And then I'm going to do the reverse, the P side and under and up. Now it looks like this is, maybe it just needs to be pushed up a little bit. The tension, you just have to play with the tension. But there we go, because you don't want to tighten it too much and have that shadow bead look funny. But you can certainly do it without beads, right, in the middle. But I wanted to see what they look like. So now, what do we do next? We do this side, right? Because we go from the left to the right, then the center. So let me put this shadow on here. And then you just, it's like Ron Popeil says, set it and forget it. At least I think that was Ron Popeil. I don't know. The chicken rotisserie thing, isn't that? I don't know where that's coming from. But put the bead in and forget it, right? So now I'm going to tie the opposite one, the P side. So I'm going to go here, make my loop. Don't let the bead throw you. Make your loop like this, right? Put this strand over the tail, under the center, and up through the loop. And then I'm going to tie the second one, okay, to lock it in place. Because remember that full stitch, the full flat stitch is the P and the Q mixed. Okay, so there's my first beads, and use your knotting tweezers or use your awl to kind of make sure everything's slid into place correctly. Okay, now let me tie. So this is the thing that you want to remember. Let me get in tight again. When you're macrameing, right, when you're doing this flat knot, remember that you always start on the side that has the little scallop. Okay, so if I do that and I tie this knot like back and forth as I go down, it's going to balance itself out. So watch, see the scallop is here, so that means I make my Q side, and see it's not, it's kind of funny because the Q, it kind of comes here, but then you go, you just tie it, just ignore that bead that's in there, and then you bring it up. And then see how it gives you, I'm going to do this again, now I'll do the Q side over here, or the P side over here. And that should give me the scallop. Whoops, I think I did that backwards. Because I wanted to end it here. So I guess I need to do it the other side, sorry. Because that's the second one I tied. So over, under, and up, and then that should put the scallop, I think, on the opposite side. Let's see what it looks like. Yep, see that? So you're not always having, there we go. So the little scallop is not always on the second side. So the next time I'm going to start on the opposite side for that. So, and you see it creates that little plain little ladder right there. So that each bead is surrounded by a plain strand. So now it's time to add a bead, right? So I'm going to add the bead, make the loop, we go wider. I hope this is making sense to everybody. Underneath, and tighten, and just regular Bollywood under, what we call Bollywood, because it makes the Bollywood bracelet, made famous by our very own Brittany Ketchum. There we go. And just fix, use your tweezers to fix that tension. Now put a bead on this side. Whoops, I dropped it. Start on the end. And you could just do a few of these, and then you could also bead the outside, right? Inside the loop. Would look great. So now here is that one. And so now we're going to do our center. So I think we started on the P side last time, so we'll start on the Q. Make the loop. Go up. And make the loop. And go down. Okay. Length, I'm going to do just a couple more. A bead. I've got to put a bead on. And I think if you put a bead on every single one, it would look funny, right? We need this little plain row on the inside to kind of let the beads have a little bit of air. Now's about the time that you're wondering, hey Kate, how are you going to close this off? I'm wondering that too. That's for tomorrow, Kate, to worry about. Not today, Kate. Though it can ruminate while I think about this today while I'm filling orders. But wouldn't this look, yeah, without the bead it would look more like a mesh, which would be cool, right? But when there's space, I say add a bead. You could also, if you wanted to, there's all type, whoops, I did that backwards. I can tell because that loop is funny. That goes in, this loop goes here. I tied something funny, it just didn't look right, so I'm going to redo it. This here, I go up, I go under, I tighten. This is also wanting to twist. There we go. Keep your strands kind of taut on your macrame board, and it'll be easier for you to do the macrame. There we go. Okay, straighten everything in. I could put a bead or something here in the center if I wanted to run some beads up here. I could do that too. You could try it out. But I think this is complex enough for, at least for this morning. For me, it's morning. It's 9 o'clock, so I'm still, still digesting that coffee. But again, see how my center, how I tie it back and forth, that center one, so that the scallop goes from left to right to left to right. So let me give you a measurement of what this is so far, because you don't have to macrame that much. My mom knows where I've got it. I'll think of that tomorrow. That's right. Tomorrow's another day. That is correct, Mama. Channeling Miss Scarlett O'Hara on that one. So I've gotten almost an inch here of of this. Okay, so if I go back to where my O beads, I've got about 2 inches here. So I need 2, 3, 4, 5. I probably need 3, 6, 7, just short of 3 inches probably per side, right? Because the clasp, I think maybe I'll do something like this. We have the Clio 3, the vertical Clio in 3, which might work for this. But this is the vertical Clio in 4. But you could totally macrame, do this off. Can you see how that would look really cool with that? Okay, so I would just continue with this, and I think the 8's the right way to go. Let me pull this in the center and let me get close to the middle. If you do, I mean, you could do it thinner, right? You would just use a different base or something for it. Let me get a little wider so you can kind of compare them, right? So, and someone's asking about Ceylon. Yeah, I mean, you know, you don't have to do it through this Peyote thing, right? I just wanted to, I don't know, play around with it. I could also glue all of these into a magnetic clasp. That's what Janice said. Maybe like her Book of Kells or something like that. Might look kind of killer. So that actually might be the way to go. I might, if I were to do that, I'd get a little piece of ultra suede and maybe glue everything into the ultra suede and glue that ultra suede into that clasp. Maybe. That's a good thought, JP. So let me just do a few more of these so you get the idea, and then I'm going to take this portion out. I'm going to put this on my wrist so you can see it. Okay, but I hope you guys like it. I don't know. I don't know. I guess just talking with Brittany just kind of inspired me to do some of this. Now I cut, as I said, 30 inches of thread. I hope I have enough. If you're doing this, I might actually cut, I don't know, maybe 40 inches because you need that half on each, you know, because that 30 inches becomes split in half. So you might actually need just a hair more, but I'm not quite sure. But that's what I cut anyway. And remember, for convenience, to get those beads on there, I zap glued the ends to make self needles. So here's the P side. And once you get going with this, you can really just kind of improvise it. But remember that you want your tension not to be super tight. On the blue side, I was also pulling things kind of tight with it, right? And now here goes the center. So I want to make sure that it's going to go on the right, the correct side. So I think Q, P, Q, P, Q, I think is what I did here. So if you think of it this way, the even or the odd numbers are the Q side and the even numbers are the P side. Is that right? I think so. Yeah, because 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so the odd numbers are the P or the Q side, and the even numbers are the P side. Then, whoops! Look what I did here. I didn't add a bead. You guys are yelling at me, probably from all over the world. Kate, put a bead on it. I forgot to put a bead. Look at how quickly that unknotted with the tweezer. So just undo it. Nothing for it. No, it's okay. No use crying over a missed bead. We've got many more things to cry about right now, so beading is not one of them. There we go. Done. Now let me do that center. And it was the Q side that I started with. And now the P. There we go. And again, use your tweezer if you need to tighten things up a little bit or adjust your tension. Couple more. So remember, go from the right, I'm sorry, from the left. Gosh, I'm not getting my right and my left. I'm thinking too far ahead about the clasp. I need to just knock it off, Richburg. Don't think about the clasp. Stay in the moment. Put on the bead. Go on the Q side. On the left. Tighten it up. Complete the knot. That's what happens when I think too far ahead. I'm not in the beading moment. There we go. Put the bead on. Now the P. And complete the knot. And I'll finish off with the center. Since it's an even number of knots, it starts on the Q, or it starts on the P, then goes to the Q. Can you tell sometimes I have spatial relationship issues? My mom will tell you I didn't learn my right and my left really like until last year, and I'm not kidding. I don't know why, I just have that. Sometimes I just can't get it straight in my head. So thank goodness for Google Maps. There we go. Okay. So that's it. I'm going to knot the other side. Okay. And you guys can figure out your measurements, right? I mean, it's not rocket science, really. I'm going to undo this side, right? We've all seen it. We know what it looks like. We know that it's not quite right. I've already cut these. It's no big deal. I'll just save this. I'll just wind this cord back up onto something and reuse it. It's not the end of the world. It's nice, long macrame cord. And so I just here can very quickly unknot using, and then you'll see, because I want you to see how, whoops, take this off, don't toss it at me, and I want you to see the connection before we part ways today, how I did it, so I can show you on this side once I take this out. But that's the cool thing about macrame, you know, just you invest a little bit of time, but it's not hours and hours. And if it's not quite right, those of you I know who are doing the Zelda bracelet were saying that you were sometimes having a little bit of start and stop issues starting over. But once you restart and kind of recalibrate, a lot of times everything just comes together really easily. So don't be afraid of, coming in and playing around and seeing what works, because that's what I did on this side, and I realized, yeah, that's not working for me at all. So that's okay. Take it out. There we go. You could also use your awl. My awl is sitting over across the table and I'm too lazy to grab it, so I'm using my tweezers. Let's take all of these out. And I thought that the little shadows that I put on would kind of fill in. See, I kind of like that look. Let me undo it from here too. Undo it from the board. There we go. So see, I think it looks kind of nice this way, right? As a closure if this were the end or something. But it didn't really work for adding these shadows on this end, or these threads on that end. So I'm going to have to take these off. Okay. And so yeah, if you were going to do this without the peyote, or without the peyote, I would get, we have a 5-strand. This is the 4-strand Clio. But you could do it thinner that way too. And you just start just right off the end of this clasp. Okay. So that's it. Then what you could do, let me see here. Is let's measure. So here's my center, like so. Can you see that? Just like that. So I need to come around, depending on the clasp. I don't have that much more to macrame. Can you see that here? Whoops, there we go. Sorry about that. And there's a glue-in. There's a glue-in clasp and stuff too. So I don't know. I'll ruminate over this and see what happens. But this, I'm going to have to take these out. I'm not really sure. I must have clipped it off here. So the way that I would take this out is I would very carefully first, I'll show you this because there's, of course, you can save this. It's not the end of the world, right? So I'm gonna cut a piece of Hana thread. All is not lost. Now I'm gonna, like the last week when I cut up my peyote stitch bead necklace, there was a collective gasp that went around the world. Well, there's going to be another collective gasp. I'm going to come in. Let me get these pins out of the way. And I know I want to get rid of this bead, so I'm just going to cut this thread. Right? I'm going to let it go. And I'm going to take this second row of shadows off too. Just bear with me. Okay, so now I'm kind of back to here, and I've got these 2 threads that are here, right? I need to just go in, and I'm just going to peyote stitch. I'm going to reinforce. So I'm just going to come in here, and I'm going to just pretend that everything's fine. Kind of like what we've been doing a lot these days, just in the world in general, at least for me. I'm just pretending everything's fine. But I'm going to reinforce this piece of macrame, or this piece of peyote stitch. This is where I started. These are those 2 mystery ends that I'm not really sure I know what's happening with them, so I'm not going to do anything with them yet. And I'm just going to come in, stitch it, reinforce it, exit where those strands go, come out, ignore them. Not doing anything with them quite yet. Come on, get out of my way. Peyote stitch that in. And once I reinforce this enough, I should be able to get rid of those 2 random strands. Come up through these O beads. Peyote is kind of, you know, all about the diagonal, right? So I'm gonna come here. Bring it through. Bring it out to where I want to start my peyote stitch again. Right here. There we go. And I'm just going to add, whoops, sorry, out of frame. And put them, sorry, I cut a really stupidly long piece of thread here, which is giving me fits. So I'm just going to stitch these 5 shadows in back where they go. Right? No big deal. Nothing to worry about, nothing to see here. Move along everyone. Right? We can fix it. So there's the second one. And the way I close this off, I'm going to have to get rid of some of this thread. This is just obnoxious. It keeps catching. There we go. Like so. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I think one of those beads came off, so I'm going to come up and stitch this in there. Let's see how it looks. Yep, there we go. So see how I've got my 5 here? Now, I should have started actually on the other side. That's why I did this backwards. My first bead actually went here, but it didn't matter. I just went here and then just came through. Doesn't make any difference really. And what I did to close it off was I'm just going to reinforce this. So I'm going to peyote stitch back through. Yeah, I should have started it on the opposite end, but it doesn't matter. As long as all of the beads, there was that little space for the bead. So that's why I just went back up into that one. Stitch back through. I'll go back to this starting point because I want more than one thread running through. Sorry, my hand's blocking a little bit. There we go. And so see here, I'm just going to run it through. Peyote stitch this one more time. No big deal. And again, I'm using a size 10 sharp. Really helps me move this needle around a little bit easier for me. Okay, I can see where those are coming up, where those are. So what I'm going to do is something that I rarely do is I'm going to tie a knot. I'm going to knot these 2 strands together right here. The smallest of strands, but I think I can get a square knot in there, especially with the use of my tweezers. Right over left. Left over right. Are you holding your breath like I am? There we go. Come on. Go under there. A bunch of people are watching, so cooperate, please. There we go. Now, just a hair, a little soupçon of glue. Someone's saying, is that how I did odd count? Is that how you do odd count peyote? That's funny. I had no idea. Well, there you go. I guess odd count peyote then isn't so bad. I'm going to have to look it up. Who knew? I'm telling you, peyote stitch was the only, until Emily started doing seed bead school, peyote stitch was the only seed bead stitch I did. And now I'm trying to get the lid back in the GS, so bear with me, you all know how long that can take. There we go. I'm just going to let those ends sit. I'm going to let that glue sit, and later I'll clip it. But let me now bury this thread in my peyote stitch. And I'll clip it away. Who knew that's how you did odd count peyote? I guess I should really look it up. I'm now favoring brick stitch a lot. I don't know, I'm seeing a lot of you guys create a lot of really nice things with brick stitch. I keep moving this pin everywhere and my thread keeps catching on it. There we go. This isn't too bad. There we are, and just bury it somewhere in the center. I'm going to bury it right, I'm going to clip it right there. There we go. And I never like to leave that end out on an end, so I've got enough of a tail here. Then I'm just going to come in and bury that one too. Just a little. I like to turn a corner when I do that. And with these A-dots, the hole is ample, so you can really get it in there. Okay, that's it. Okay. I'll clip these, I'll clip them short, but not as short as I will later. Okay, so now this is ready for the other side of the peyote bracelet. Okay, so that's it. That's all she wrote. So again, lengthwise, now it's a little bit easier to see across here. I'm at almost 3 inches, so I need to figure out, I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to actually close this, because that's going to make this determine how much macrame I need. But I don't need that much more on this side, and you saw how quickly this worked up. So in the 0.8 millimeter macrame, it works up pretty easily. It would also look very nice. These little loops here are perfect for some more beads, Bollywood style, if you wanted to do it that way, the beaded Bollywood with the beads along the outside would look great. This also, you could use this as, you know, like the clasp. You could, I don't know, even continue to peyote stitch here and add a button or something if you wanted it to be slightly asymmetrical. Might also be cool. So it just depends on what you guys, how you want to interpret it. But we will wrap this sucker up tomorrow and see how this is all going to close up right there. But for now, I'm going to take a photo of it for Drea so I don't forget here how I like doing that while I'm still on air, because I really will. I promise I'll forget. There's that. And remember, I use the 0.8, so let me put this 0.8, let me get that in there. And of course, my knotting tweezers seemed pretty indispensable in this one, so let's go out just a little bit here, and we're good to go. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to continue with this guy, and we'll figure out again how we're going to close this sucker up. and we'll bring this one to a close. And then we're going to start on some lariats. And like I said, the lariats are going to start with a knot because I know you guys like the knots. And this knot is super easy. And I think I'm going to do it with leather, I think, though you could do it with Chinese knotting cord and stuff too. But it's still kind of ruminating in my head. So I have another day to think about it before I really have to make some choices. But I hope you enjoyed it, that mix of peyote stitch and macrame. Thank you so much, Brittany, for the inspiration on this design. I also wanted to show you guys this one that a couple of people have been asking. I saw in the comments about these earrings. This is something that I've wanted to teach for you guys for a long time, and I made these back in the day when the bead shop was a brick and mortar. Okay, this is, I'll turn it to the back so you can see it. It's just a simple chainmail, very easy to do, and it's a great, if you've never worked with linking jump rings together, this is such an easy project to make. So I'm going to put this on my to make list. I don't know how soon we'll get to it, but I think it would be fun to do a little bit of chain work with jump rings. And I think they really, I don't know, they kind of dress up, have a kind of a dressy air to them. So that's it. That's our Tuesday lesson, Creative Connections with Kate. We made it through another weekend, so it's Tuesday, April 28th. We are doing, like I said, we're doing fine. We're still sheltering, we're still social distancing, as I hope you guys are. We're going to get through it though. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, but we still need to be careful and smart and wash those hands, kids. I will see you tomorrow, Wednesday, April 29th, at 8:30 a.m. Pacific time for some more of this macrame extravaganza. And again, a big thank you to Brittany Ketchum for the inspiration on this, because I would have never been able to macrame had it not been for you. So thank you all ever so, and I will see you tomorrow morning. Thanks so much, everybody. Talk to you soon.